All right. So here in the Collector's Corner, we like to talk about anything that's interesting that's happened in the world of collectibles, primarily normally with a little bit of a comic book focus at the very least. But we also talk about things such as action figures. We talk, statues, any of these fun things, trading cards. That's what we like to talk about here in the Collector's Corner. Now, for tonight's episode, these were the selections that I made. One of these, it's weird because any one of these could be potentially a speculation play, depending upon how you want to view it. But I feel like they're all interesting comics to discuss and potentially own for a lot of different reasons. Okay, so our big speculation play for this evening is actually ROM Space Knight. This is actually episode 31. This is from 1982. And you may be asking yourself, okay, we talked about ROM the Space Knight a little while ago. You said there was a stalled out movie thing that might still be happening. That's why you write this was a pullback on the price. Okay, whatever. Why are you recommending ROM the Space Knight 31? Because this is the second appearance of Rogue, everybody. That's the really funny thing about this book. This is the second appearance of Rogue. She's actually on the far right-hand side of the corner here. Her and ROM are actually looking at each other. But that's the funny thing. She's actually running around with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants because she did start off as a villain. And they're actually trying to take down ROM the Space Knight. And so that's the thing that makes this book unique. And it's so strange to think of a character like Rogue, like her second appearance not being in an X-Men book. But this is it. This is her second appearance. It's in ROM the Space Knight 31 from 1982. All right, our second book. Yeah, This is her second appearance. And you can get this book for a song. You can get it for $10. You can get it for $20. If you wait long enough and you find it bundled up with a bunch of other stuff, when you average it out across the books, I mean, you can get it for a couple dollars. I actually bought another copy of this book with a bunch of ROM the Space Knight books. They were all thrown in together. And I paid $19 for this huge stack of ROM the Space Knight books. And in there was a copy of this. And it was an additional copy. Because like I said, I've been trying to kind of secure my position with kind of key X-Men books because I feel like that down the road, these are going to be some interesting books to be holding on to from a speculation standpoint. I'm also trying to get like a really high grade copy for myself. So, if I buy 3 or 4 copies, I send them all in to get graded. I'm going to keep the one with the highest grade, and then I'll just sell off the others. Right? That's the way my thinking is working in my mind. But this is really interesting. This is a really key early book for Rogue. It's kind of like weirdly like with Sabretooth. Like Sabretooth's big issue is actually an issue of Iron Fist, and that's the thing that's really weird is how because we associate these characters with these properties where they've kind of become established. We think of Rogue as an X-Man, but she was a villain and a member of the Brotherhood of the Evil Mutants first. And she had a lot of adventures outside. Her first main appearance, her big debut, was actually fighting the Avengers. That's where she started. She was actually fighting against the Avengers. And then in this one, here she is fighting against ROM the Space Knight. So
interesting.
Yeah. All right. So our second book for this evening, this is Swamp Thing 49. This is from 1986. This is part of Alan Moore's monumental, amazing, highly celebrated, and deservedly so Swamp Thing run. I've never really talked about it before. I'm a huge Swamp Thing fan. I've actually been in the process too. I've actually been picking up and securing a lot of early Swamp Thing books, trying to put together like an interesting collection of them. One of my favorite comic book inspired movies, actually, because I love the opening sequence, is actually Return of the Swamp Thing. It's a fun, campy, silly kind of movie, but I love the way that it opens with Creedence Clearwater's Born on a Bayou. And we get all those really great, early Swamp Thing covers, as they give us the credits and are getting us ready for the movie. I love that opening sequence. It's one of my favorite because of how it uses comic book art. Kind of like in the same way that Flash Gordon does that. The Flash Gordon movie from the 80s does that. You got a great killer, fun, rock kind of sound, song, obviously from Queen, right? And then you have these great classic images from the original Flash Gordon comic strips, illustrated, by Alex Raymond. So the thing that makes this book interesting is there's a lot of hype, a lot of talk, and there's a lot of kind of stuff, rumblings about eventually this Justice League Dark. It was announced that it's being developed to be a show or a series actually on HBO Max. This is one of your very, very early appearances of actually Justice League Dark. It's considered an unofficial cameo, but this is one of the first times that we start to see characters like Dr. Fate, where you see characters like the Demon, right? Characters like the Phantom Stranger and Swamp Thing actually team up together. So they consider this an early unofficial cameo. It's considered a kind of a key monumental book actually for Justice League Dark. What's also interesting about this too is that it's really kind of cool that Dr. Fate is in here. There's been a lot of discussion about Dr. Fate because it was announced that Pierce Brosnan, Remington Steele, Mr. James Bond, is actually going to be playing Dr. Fate in the Black Adam movie. So I thought this was interesting too, because it's an interesting way to kind of start dipping your toes into exploring Dr. Fate. And as the Collector's Corner move on, we're going to do a little bit more exploration of Dr. Fate, because there's a lot of really great fun, not really Golden Age, because Dr. Fate goes back to the Golden Age, but kind of more Bronze, Copper, Modern Age books for Dr. Fate that are very much within range. And this book is as well. You can pick this book up relatively cheap. But again, early Justice League Dark. Now, our last one, maybe a speculation play. I don't know. Kind of going out on a limb with this one. But I've been going through the process. I talked before about securing a lot of Blade kind of key issues kind of here and there. I'm one of those weird people. I enjoyed Blade Trinity. I know a lot of people didn't like Blade Trinity. But I do feel like if they're going to bring Blade into the MCU, it's only a matter of time before we obviously get the Night Stalkers, which Blade was a part of, which they actually touched on actually in Blade Trinity. And this is your first solo series for the Night Stalkers. This is issue number 1. Again, this is another book you can pick up for a song, although this is the one that's starting to skyrocket, everybody. This is the one that's starting to go up a little bit. This is the one I have a feeling is going to be hard to find here pretty soon. There's not a lot. There's not a lot of modern Blade key comic books. Most of the Blade key comic books actually are from Tomb of Dracula. So there's not a lot of quote unquote modern other than the Blade series itself. But I feel like over time, this is going to become maybe potentially an important book for Blade. So I have been kind of picking up copies of Night Stalker number 1 kind of here and there because I think there might be something interesting happening with this book down the road as Blade comes into the MCU. So this is Night Stalkers number 1 from 1992. This is the last selection for this installment of the Collector's Corner.
That's very cool. That's interesting, because I do think that there's going to be a lot of buzz with Blade, as time goes on, we'll get closer and closer to his MCU appearance and things like that. I also think Morbius can play into this too. Morbius obviously is going to be coming out on the Sony end, so that'll be interesting to see how that kind of affects things, because I know there's a lot of Blade and Morbius comics out there, aren't there, where the two of them interact with each other?
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's actually, I think it's Adventure into Fear is actually an early Morbius and Blade book where the two of them actually square off, which is really interesting. But again, the problem with some of those books, though, is again, like I said, they're already out of range. I didn't mention. Yeah, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but primarily what we're doing here in the Collector's Corner is we're also again looking for books that you could pick up for $20. Something you can pick up relatively affordably, maybe $10, right? And be part of the fandom and kind of part of the collectors community and have something kind of fun and kind of cool. And if it goes up in value, great. And if it doesn't, I only spend $10 on it, right? So the goal is, no more than $20 is kind of where my cap is when I make these selections for Collector's Corner. And we're trying to find those interesting little gems that maybe people aren't talking about very much. And so that's kind of the deal. For example, I wanted to kind of highlight Morbius number 1, which is actually part of this Rise of the Midnight Suns. You see it says part 5 of 6. There were actually 6 issues. It was Ghost Rider, it was Morbius, it was Night Stalkers. All these books kind of tied in together as this Rise of the Midnight Suns arc, right? Or story arc. But the Morbius book is already getting out of range. It's already starting to go up, and it's interesting because it's pulling this book up with it, I think. when you start talking about Morbius, you start talking about Blade, it's actually pulling this book up with it. As of the airing of this episode right now, you can still pick up Night Stalkers #1 relatively inexpensively. You can pick up Night Stalkers #1 bundled in with the rest of the Rise of the Midnight Sun storyline as well. For maybe $40-$50, you can get the all 6 parts. But I feel like Night Stalkers #1, I feel like this one's going to be out of my $20 cap here pretty quick.
Very cool. That's interesting. Definitely something for people to keep their eye out for.
Yeah, and then as far as my trading card journey goes, nothing's changed. I'm still waiting for PSA because it seems like none of this other stuff really matters. I've got such a huge stack of cards, I showed them off before, that I really want to get graded, I really want to turn in. But I'm at the point now where I realize I'm going to be sending stuff to CGC before I even get to PSA at this point. And it's weird, too, because I'm hearing that CGC's got quite a little bit of a backlog going on the comic side, too, because there's a lot of interest in getting your books graded and kind of securing them, you know what I mean? Maybe for kind of a long-term thing, as it sounds weird, but as a different kind of an asset, right? Like,
right.
Even though it doesn't seem like it, So we'll see. We'll see how this all goes.
Eric says, believe it or not, I still have my copy of Night Stalkers #1 from the early 90s. A few short boxes of 90s comics have followed me every place I've gone for decades. And I'm in the same position, actually, Eric. I actually do have a short box full of quite a few actual 90s comics. Although the one that I was really into in the 90s was actually Chaos Comics. I actually collected a lot of Chaos Comics in the 90s. Not so much, the Marvel and stuff like that. Marvel was big for me as a kid with Transformers and G.I. Joe. But then in the 90s, I think I was really into a lot of independent stuff. And of course, that was sort of like the independent boom, right? Independent comics were kind of the thing for a while. And definitely Chaos was one of the big contenders at that point. Because at one point, Chaos was like the 5th largest publisher. So they were pretty popular at one point as well.
And with a certain segment, too, of the fandom, actually now with Coffin Comics, you could say they're still kind of popular to an extent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're doing great with their crowdfunders. Polito's like a master promoter salesman. I mean, yeah, I could never say anything to take away from that. He's done extremely well on the independent side. I did want to follow up from last week with my Collector's Corner segment. This is from Business Wire. And again, I was talking about Topps and the fact, actually, Dave had originally spoken to me about the fact that Topps was going to be going public very soon. It's anticipated to go public this year. And they are getting into NFTs. So this Business Wire article says Top debuts its first Major League Baseball card NFT collection with Top Series 1 baseball launch. Set will be released in conjunction with Major League Baseball and MLB Players, Inc., and marks the first time a Topps baseball card set will live on blockchain. So it said the Top company today announced the release of 2021 Top Series 1 baseball NFT. That's non-fungible tokens for those of you that don't know what that is. This will be ushering in a new era of baseball card collecting in partnership with Major League Baseball and MLB Players, Inc., launching Tuesday, April 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Topps will build on its legacy as an innovator of digital collectibles by releasing its flagship yearly baseball card collection for the first time as NFTs. Artwork from the physical 2021 Top Series 1 baseball release, including iconic throwback card templates, anniversary sets, and more, will be digitally enhanced and creatively reimagined as official licensed Topps MLB NFT collectibles. I do feel like some of our audience may not know what an NFT is. Definitely, I didn't know what it was until Dave actually talked to me about it. And I'm no expert on it, but basically what we're talking about is digital collectibles. It's a very interesting idea. I don't know how I feel about it, honestly, as a collector myself. I don't know if I really buy into it, but I will say this, because we are big into specs, right? We're big into the speculative collector's market. There can be money to be made even when you don't believe in something. So even if I don't necessarily believe in NFTs, I do believe there's a potential, at least possibly in the short term, to make some money. And in the long term, you might as well. You know, we've seen where Bitcoin has gone and these digital cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. Another thing that I was always very skeptical of and still am to this day, but there's money to be made. There's no denying it. People have made fortunes from Bitcoin, especially if you got into it when it first started. And we're mining Bitcoin at the beginning. Gosh, you might be a millionaire now, just putting a few $1,000s into that. So it is interesting that Topps is taking the plunge into NFTs and really, in a sense, is making NFTs mainstream. I mean, what do you think of that, Dave?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like I said, and again, I will go ahead and put the warning out. You know, we're talking like speculation. You know, obviously, you need to talk to a financial investor to make sure if this stuff makes sense for you. Whether you're talking about the comic books, the trading cards, or like the NFTs. You know, additionally, too, you know, never invest money that you can't afford to lose. It's an important thing to always understand, right? Like if you lost that money, you'd feel really bad. You know, obviously, don't invest that, right?
I saw a really good thing that Dave Ramsey's daughter said, and they had a caller going to Dave Ramsey's show. You're familiar with Dave Ramsey,
yep.
Right, Dave? Okay.
Yep.
So for people that aren't familiar with him, he's like one of the financial gurus. You know what I mean? Of the last 2 decades or so. Like he's helped a lot of people get out of debt and things like that. There was a caller that came that called because they had made money off of the GameStop. Okay, GameStop stock. Okay, the meme stocks, if you will, right? They made a substantial amount of money, and of course, you know, Dave being the way he is, if you've ever seen him, he's very conservative about that stuff. He does not like investing in individual stocks at all. In fact, he tells people not to do it. He's a mutual fund guy. He's all about mutual funds. Okay, he does not like people investing in individual stock because he feels it's a gamble. But it's funny because on the particular episode that I saw, or segment that I saw, his daughter was there with him. And of course, his daughter's a lot younger. And apparently his daughter likes to gamble. She actually likes to play craps, which I thought was really interesting. His daughter actually enjoys that. And of course, you could see Dave Ramsey rolling his eyes about his daughter talking about this. But she gave this interesting recommendation that I really think was good, which is she said, when you look at like individual stocks, right? You should almost view it the same way that you view your entertainment money. Because, Dave talks about having like these different envelopes, these different piles of money, and you use them for specific things, paying specific bills, paying down debt, and fun stuff, right? Like going to movies, going to dinner, things like that. And it should be a specific amount that you have in your budget. And she kind of added the idea that, hey, if you like to gamble, like she does occasionally, which the stock market can kind of be considered a gamble, which I definitely think it is. Think of that money in the same way. In other words, it's part of your fun money. So it's money that you can lose. You know what I mean? You can lose all of it and still be comfortable. I thought that was great advice.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. We just want to make sure people understand, just to be not knowledgeable and aware. We're talking about this because it's fun. It's interesting to talk about. It's fun to speculate on. You know what I mean? But just keep that in mind if you're thinking about acting on any of the things that we're talking about. We're not financial investors. We're just fans and hobbyists talking about things we enjoy. But what's interesting, what I like about
we are investors. We're just not advisors.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
you and I are investors, but we're not advisors.
Yeah, we are for sure.
But we do invest ourselves. We do actually invest ourselves and dabble in this stuff.
Right, and the thing I like about Topps, is because they represent an interesting way to move into the collectibles, right, in a physical way, but also a way to move into collectibles in a digital way. That's what I like about it, is that they kind of have a little bit of both worlds, right? So depending upon how they manage this and how they kind of let this play out, there's a lot of room and a lot of potential here. Now, I didn't buy any of the MLB baseball NFT stuff just because I'm waiting for the other stuff. I'm waiting for the Star Wars. I'm waiting for Marvel. Like, I'm waiting for the things that I'm interested in, right? And that's when I'll make a move as far as actually purchasing, some of the NFTs and the cards and whatever they're doing, because I want to do that. But for me, at the moment, the thing I'm waiting for, again, it's supposed to be third, fourth quarter, is when Topps actually announces that they're going to be an IPO that are available. You know what I mean? For people to actually purchase, stock. And that's what I'm waiting for. That's what I really want to do. And then, it's interesting too, because I've told Eric about this. Like I bought Funko like a while ago. And I bought it again, just because it was fun. I thought it'd be just fun to say, I own a little bit of Funko. Why not? It's just fun, right? The stock wasn't too terribly expensive, just kind of a silly thing, and I like them. Like I like the little Funko characters. Talked about them here on the show before about how much I liked them, and I eventually got to this point where I was like, I should just own some of this stock because I think it's fun. So that's what I did, and they have experienced a little bit of positive movement, and a lot of it's been because of their recent move into NFTs, which is what I like about Topps here. So it's interesting to see. We'll see how this all. It's just like Falcon Winter Soldier. We'll see how this all plays out, right? Like,
Right.
But I think it's kind of cool and it's kind of fun, and I think it's neat too because I think you make a good point, Eric, about how Topps is helping NFTs to go mainstream.
Right.
Because that brand awareness for Topps, and I think most people collected baseball cards at one point. You know what I mean? And it just helps to kind of bring that along and help people go, oh, okay, all right, well, I'll buy some digital baseball cards. Why not? I'll buy some digital Star Wars or Marvel cards. Why not? So I'm really curious to see how this is going to work. I think the only thing about this so far I found weird was when I watched a little promo video for how the baseball card thing works. And then at one point, it looks like it's some kind of weird video game thing or something. And there's animation. I was just like, I don't know, that was kind of weird. So that was the only part of it so far that I didn't know how to react to. So
interesting. Yeah, I guess we'll see. We'll see if this catches on or not. This is something that's going to be happening in real time. So it'll be interesting to see. April 20th, it's right around the corner.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. But like I said, again, for me, I'm waiting for the Marvel NFTs. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for the Star Wars. I'm waiting for those other things. That's it'll be interesting too because there are other valuable licenses out there that could be moved into this space as well. I know that Cryptozoic has had the rights to do the DC trading cards for a very long time. So I'm really curious to see, like, at some point down the road, we get another company that makes a similar announcement. They managed to pick up the license to one of these other things. And, maybe we have a similar thing where you could buy, digital DC Comics collectibles, and kind of hold on to those as NFTs as well. I wouldn't mind owning some Batman stuff that's NFT. That sounds kind of fun, So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, this is an emerging market, and we'll see if it sinks or swims.